So recently, I saw this post on X and it made me facepalm big time. The topic of the most influential players in NBA history is a pretty frequent discussion, especially on social media. And what's annoying about posts like this is it literally says in the post the most influential players ever, while only having guys represented who played during their lifetime. The truth is, when you're really looking at who were the most influential players in NBA history, there's a lot more that gets factored in than simply how cool the player was, how good the player was, or how many people look up to him. Today, I'm bringing you my list of the top 5 most influential players in NBA history. And honestly, I thought about making this a top 10 list, that way I can include more players. But part of me feels like the reason this is such a spicy topic is because we usually only limit it to 4 or 5 players. So it really starts to get tough to narrow it down and decide who gets left off. So please, let me know in the comments section below how your list differs from mine. First off, at number 5, I've got Allen Iverson. Anyone who lived in Philly during the rise of Allen Iverson can tell you all about this guy's influence, as he brought hip-hop culture to the NBA. He was so authentic, real, and genuinely himself that he was constantly getting fined by the NBA for how he presented himself. For example, this guy put pressure on the NBA to loosen up their dress code. And as you all have noticed, in the years since, the NBA has become extremely loose, as players are now allowed to express themselves wearing just about whatever they want. On some occasions, they look fantastic, and on others, not so much. Allen Iverson was an incredible talent, and the way he played the game with swagger, with style, and with supreme confidence, he inspired a new generation of basketball fans, ones that could relate to an undersized underdog, as AI was on many occasions. Some are going to say that he doesn't deserve to be on the list, and some are going to get mad at me saying that he isn't high enough. But for myself personally, he'll have to settle for the 5th spot on this list. Number 4, Steph Curry. He is quite simply the greatest shooter in NBA history, as he is the league's all-time leader in three-pointers made, and by quite a margin. He literally changed the way the game is played. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area during the rise of Steph Curry, and let me tell you, just from playing pickup ball in 24-hour fitness, I could see the influence of Steph Curry, as guys were pulling up from 30 feet out with extreme regularity when they had no business doing so. The NBA itself became a three-point shooting league because of his impact, as everyone wanted to emulate the Warriors' success. Nowadays, kids and even prospects around the world are focusing on their three-point shooting because everyone wants to play the game like Steph. And for goodness sake, the Golden State Warriors became the most valuable franchise in all of sports, mainly due to Steph Curry's greatness. If you had told me in the early 2000s that the Warriors would go on to be the most valuable franchise in sports during my lifetime, I would have told you that you were crazy. But again, we have Steph Curry to thank for that. Number 3, Oscar Robertson. Some of you are going to hear that name and are going to scratch your head. But before you roast me in the comments section, you need to understand, this guy had one of the biggest impacts in the history of the NBA. It was Oscar Robertson himself who took the NBA to court and challenged the league over its lack of player mobility. There's a cool story here, and honestly, I'll probably do an exclusive video for it at some point. But what you need to know is that NBA free agency didn't exist before Oscar Robertson, and if it wasn't for him stepping in, free agency might not exist in the NBA. And especially when you look at this current era of basketball players, where guys are teaming up, pairing up with their friends, and making super teams left and right, you have to go all the way back to the early 1970s in order to understand how that all was possible. Then after that, this guy was Mr. Triple-Double, as he was the first player in NBA history to average a triple-double over the course of the season. Beyond that, he helped Kareem Abdul-Jabbar win his first NBA championship in 1971. So yeah, beyond the fact that he's the reason for free agency, he was a pretty darn good player as well. At the number 2 spot, I have Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And I know, some of you are going to be annoyed that I put Magic and Bird in the 2nd spot. So technically, this would be the top 6 most influential players in NBA history. The thing is, I think the impact of these two guys is completely inseparable. Magic Johnson is not as special as he was without Bird, and Bird is not as special as he was without Magic. Their rivalry defined an entire era of NBA basketball, and ever since then, the NBA has been looking to replicate that rivalry. It also happened for the two greatest franchises in the history of the sport, greatly enhancing their value and their legacies. To this day, we are always referring to fast break highlights as Showtime, and that is thanks in large part to the Showtime Lakers. The rivalry between these two inspired countless plays, documentaries, films, and TV shows, and we are far from done seeing stories written about them. But beyond all of that, the greatest impact that these two guys had was the fact that they saved the NBA from extinction. Because the truth was, the late 1970s saw some of the worst basketball ratings of all time. As the fandom was divided, drug abuse and violence were rampant throughout the league, NBA games themselves were on tape delay until Magic and Bird took off in the NBA, and they were in desperate need of a savior or two when Magic and Bird showed up. So it's not an exaggeration to say that these two guys literally saved the NBA, and if they never happened, there's a good chance that we don't have a National Basketball Association to enjoy in this modern day. Number 1 comes as no surprise. It's Michael Jordan. It's one thing for Magic and Bird to save the league, but as they were making their exit, there was Michael to take the torch. And not only did he carry the NBA forward, but he took it to heights that the game had never seen before. Through Michael Jordan's influence, and by being the face of the Dream Team, he made the NBA global, as massive crowds throughout various different countries were all flocking en masse to see Michael Jordan play. To this day, the NBA ratings in the finals were the highest of all time when Michael Jordan was playing. But after that, he inspired many of the greatest players who came after him, as they looked to replicate his timeless skills. He also has the greatest selling basketball shoe of all time, and even several decades after he's played his last game in the NBA, they continue to fly off the shelves. I could see an argument for Magic or Bird at the number 1 spot, since they quite literally kept the NBA afloat. But no one, absolutely no one, has ever had a greater impact on basketball's popularity than Michael Jordan did. So that was just my list of the top 5 most influential players in NBA history, and this is my honorable mentions list. And some of these were really difficult to leave off my list. So let me know in the comment section below, which one of these honorable mentions would you put in the top 5? And if you did that, which one would you take out? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.